The Zodiac Killer, breaking the Z340 cipher. Hello everyone, my name is Vanessa.
My name is Amanda.
And my name is Cassandra.
And today we are going to be discussing the Zodiac Killer, and more specifically, the Z340 cipher, which took over 50 years to break. Our presentation will cover an introduction of the Zodiac Killer and his story, breaking down the solution to the Z340 cipher, and it will conclude with a brief summary and a question for the class to consider.
Firstly, we're going to introduce the Zodiac Killer and answer some of the burning questions of who, what, where, when, why, and how. So, who was the Zodiac Killer? The Zodiac Killer was a serial killer who taunted police, media, and the general public with ciphers, drawings, symbols, and letters. And these letters revealed the depths of his disturbing crimes. He always signed off his letters and ciphers with his infamous signature, this crosshair symbol seen here. And his identity continues to remain unknown even today. So there have been many theories for who the Zodiac is based on similarities in appearance to this composite sketch here. For example, in the mid-1980s, it was thought that Arthur Lee Allen, a Californian teacher who was institutionalized for child molestation, committed these murders. However, a more recent theory is that it's Gary Francis Post, a man who trained people to become murderers. Now, these theories, though, have never been proven, so we still don't know who the Zodiac Killer is.
So what was the Zodiac Killer's motive? Here are two quotes from the plain text that was deciphered from the Zodiac's first letter. He states, quote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill. When I die, I will be reborn in paradise and all the I have killed will become my slaves." End quote. It is important to note that the Zodiac had misspellings in his plain text, which can be seen from above. Where did the murders take place? The murders took place in California's San Francisco Bay Area throughout the year of 1968 to 1969. There were 4 areas in which the Zodiac Killer carried out his attacks. The first location was Lake Herman Road, followed by Blue Rock Springs, then Lake Berryessa, and lastly, Presidio Heights. Here is a map depicting the areas that the Zodiac Killer was, in relation to his crosshair symbol, which actually seemed to show a relationship between the two in the form of creating one radian between the different crime scenes.
So when did this all occur? On July 31st, 1969, the Zodiac Killer informed authorities of his crimes and murders that took place in 1968 and 1969. Afterwards, his taunting continued throughout that year until his final documented crime in 1969. However, he continued to send letters to the police and media outlets from 1969 till 1974, claiming to have committed more and more crimes. Thus, the Zodiac remained active in taunting the police and committing crimes throughout the late 1960s and mid-1970s. Why is he called the Zodiac? In the letters he sent authorities and news outlets, he would refer to himself as the Zodiac. An example of this can be seen in the image to the right. This is a letter that he sent out on August 7th, 1969, where he begins by stating, "This is the Zodiac speaking."
So how many victims died? In total, there were 5 victims who lost their lives due to the incomprehensible acts of the Zodiac. On December 20th, 1968, Betty Lou Jensen and David Arthur Faraday were shot and killed at Lake Herman Road. On July 4th, 1969, the Zodiac shot and killed Darlene Farron at Blue Rock Springs Golf Course. On September 27th, 1969, Cecilia Shepard was stabbed to death at Lake Berryessa. And lastly, on October 11th, 1969, he shot and killed cab driver Paul Stein. While there are other murders that he admitted to doing, they have not been officially confirmed, making these main 5 victims seen here the 5 victims of his crimes.
How many victims survived? There were 2 victims who survived, Michael Majot, who was with Darlene at the time, and Brian Hartnell, who was with Cecilia at the time. The Zodiac Killer thought he murdered both of these couples, but he actually only killed the woman. Both men were able to make it out alive. It became apparent that these men survived because the Zodiac Killer did not attack them as intensely as the woman. And there's actually one last victim who was never physically injured by him because she escaped before he could harm her. On March 17th, 1970, Kathleen Jones was kidnapped by a man after he told her there was a problem with her car tire. He threatened that he was going to kill her, but thanks to her quick thinking, she survived. At a police station, she saw the composite sketch of the Zodiac and immediately recognized her kidnapper.
Now we will be discussing how the Z340 was solved. The Zodiac Killer has only written 4 ciphers. However, only 2 out of the 4 have been solved to date. The first one that was deciphered was a Z408, which was sent to newspapers on July 31st, 1969. This cipher was solved through the method of homophonic substitution by amateur codebreakers Donald and Betty Hardin. They managed to break the code in 20 hours. As mentioned earlier in our presentation, the cipher reveals disturbing details regarding his sociopathic tendencies to kill. The second cipher is called the Z340, and it was sent to newspapers on November 8, 1969. This cipher was way more difficult to solve, as using homophonic substitution did not prove successful. This is a cipher that we will be talking about in greater detail throughout the rest of our presentation. In addition, these 2 ciphers are named the Z408 and Z340 because the Z actually represents the initial of the Zodiac Killer's name, Zodiac, and the number attached represents the number of characters and symbols in the ciphertext. Thus, the Z340 means that there's a total of 340 characters in that specific ciphertext.
So the Z340's code breakers. On December 5th, 2020, David Oranchak, a software developer from Virginia, Sam Blake, a mathematician from Australia, and Jarl van Eyck, a computer programmer from Belgium, came together to solve this infamously challenging cipher. Oranchak first became interested in this mystery cipher in March of 2013, later including Blake and Van Eyck in his work to decipher the Z340. Due to their amazing contributions to the field of cryptography, they were even keynote speakers at the HistoCrypt conference in 2021.
Now we're going to be looking at how they decoded the Z340 cipher. Van Eyck made the program known as AZ Decrypt that they used to help decipher the Z340. They were truly inspired to crack this cipher. Blake then worked on and came up with transpositions and manipulations of the Z340. They realized that the Zodiac Killer must have done something else to this ciphertext before he actually encoded it, as they were having difficulty decoding it. These 3 codebreakers did many experiments with different types of transpositions and manipulations. They then took one of Blake's manipulations and ran it through Van Eyck's AZ Decrypt. They ended up looking at hundreds of thousands of variations until they saw that the AZ Decrypt outputted something that looked comprehensible to them.
As one can see, the AZ Decrypt outputted the following plaintext, where keywords such as "hope you are," "trying to catch me," and "or the gas chamber" were revealed. Due to the large number of incomprehensible words, the 3 codebreakers almost overlooked this output. However, they had a feeling they were on the right track, since it seemed like these are phrases that the Zodiac would include in his messages.
Since the previous manipulation that Blake used was not 100% accurate, they decided to use another one of his manipulations. So in this manipulation, Blake divided the ciphertext of the Z340 into 3 sections, where section 1 had 9 lines, section 2 had 9 lines, and section 3 had 2 lines.
Now, Blake decided to read through the symbols in a diagonal direction. This type of pattern consists of going down 1 and over 2 to the right, and then writing each symbol down along the diagonal until you get to the edge of the page. Then, you would go back to the opposite edge and keep continuing this pattern. This resulted in the Zodiac Killer's ciphertext to be written in the correct order, becoming more comprehensible for the 3 codebreakers. Here on this slide, we see how Oranchak first read the section of the ciphertext. So he started with the yellow, then moved towards the green, turquoise, and pink symbols until he filled up the entire page with the diagonal reading pattern.
Since AZ Decrypt wasn't being entirely useful in helping decipher the first section of the ciphertext, they also decided to apply cribs to specific words in the plaintext. And putting in cribs essentially just means the codebreakers were locking in specific words that looked correct, such as "hope you are," "trying to catch me," and "gas chamber." Meanwhile, the rest of the plaintext was being rearranged while keeping these words the same. As a result, the output for the first section of the ciphertext was comprehensible, and it is displayed right here on the slide. They knew this result was accurate because in November 1969, a man went on a talk show and claimed to be the Zodiac Killer, stating that he was afraid of going to the gas chamber. Thus, this plaintext coincided with the sequence of events, as he confirmed he is not in fact afraid of going to the gas chamber, and the individual who called during the talk show was an imposter.
Next, the codebreakers used section 1 of the Z340 cipher to determine a key for the entire cipher. So they were able to do this because of the fact that each of the 63 unique symbols used throughout the entire cipher showed up at least once in section 1. And since AZ Decrypt gave them the plain text for the ciphertext of section 1 using the diagonal reading pattern, Oranchak, Blake, and Van Eyck knew they could use this key to hopefully get successful results for the next two sections. So here is the key on the left side of the slide. And notice that some of these English letters have more than one symbol corresponding to each, which is similar to homophonic substitution.
The codebreakers then applied the key and the diagonal reading pattern to section 3 of the Zodiac killer's ciphertext, and they were successful. However, when looking at the plain text at first, they noticed that some adjustments needed to be made. What they first noticed was the word paradise, but it was written backwards and misspelled. Hence, this keyword did stand out to them, as it was the word that the Zodiac killer used often in his messages. So from here, they decided to split up the plain text into chunks of words that looked familiar to them. Once they did this, some words were written correctly, and others they realized were also written backwards like paradise. After they rearranged the backwards words, they then uncovered the plain text, which states, "Life will be an easy one in paradise, death."
Now, let's look at section 2. When the codebreakers tried to apply the same key and the same reading pattern to the second section, it did not give a full English paragraph. As you can see, the plaintext revealed some English words, which are highlighted in orange. This was a bit discouraging since they noticed the Zodiac killer had an inconsistent pattern throughout this particular section of the ciphertext.
So to fix this problem with section 2, they noticed that in row 6, which is right here, the letters N-O-S-R were one space too many to the left. So for example, instead of these red letters here spelling N-O-W, they spelled O-O-W. However, Van Eyck noticed that since there is an N just before the O in row 6, if we were to shift N-O-S-R in yellow one space to the right and move this H at the end of the line back to in this spot right here, they would now have fixed the word now, which we see here, as well as other words that are highlighted in different colors. They then notice that there's this word life is in the top corner of the plain text. So they skipped life is while using the diagonal reading pattern to get the proper order of the plain text. And then Van Eyck suggested that this life is should be put at the end of the plain text of section 2.
After using this technique, they retrieved this plain text as seen on the slide in the first picture. But looking at this, one can see that it is filled with many spelling errors. But this did not stop the codebreakers, as they were then able to interpret what the misspelled words actually said, as seen on this slide in the second picture.
So, when we put the three sections together, color-coded in an orange, blue, and pink color, it reveals the following message, quote, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise, all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise, death." End quote. Hence, we can see that to encrypt this cipher, the Zodiac must have spelled words backwards, changed the placement of certain letters and phrases such as life is, and then made substitutions with the key. Then, he must have continued his encryption by writing the ciphertext in a diagonal pattern. Thus, the Zodiac killer did a number of manipulations to make this code extremely difficult to break.
The unicity distance of Z340. So one can use Shannon's theory of unicity distance to verify the accuracy of Oranchak, Blake, and Van Eyck's solution to Z340, because Shannon's theory explains that when the ciphertext has greater than D number of symbols, then the plaintext should be unique. So as defined by Shannon, the unicity distance D has this formula right here, where I of the key represents the number of possible keys, log 2 of the length represents the length of the ciphertext symbols, and H of the language is the entropy of the language used in the plaintext. So von Zergatten calculated I of the key to be 562.62 by adding all of the steps that the Zodiac used to encrypt his message, which are seen right here on the slide. Then, to find the entropy of the length, he did log 2 of 63 because there were 63 different characters that the Zodiac used in his ciphertext. For the entropy of the language, von Zergathen estimated that this would be 1.8. And then in the formula, he multiplies the H of the language by 430 divided by 340 to take into account that if one uses a 27-letter alphabet with spaces, then there would be 430 characters in the plain text from the ciphertext of 340 characters. So he substitutes all of this information into the formula, and he gets that the unicity distance is 152.03, which is less than 340, making the solution to the Z340 correct.
Hence, it is clear that the Zodiac killer purposely encrypted his messages with more difficulty each time. As it took over 50 years for the Z340 cipher to be solved, this demonstrates how Orenchak, Blake, and Van Eyck had to truly think outside of the box to get around the Zodiac's sneaky tactics. However, as we were learning about the Zodiac killer and his ciphers, we couldn't help but wonder, could the spelling mistakes in the final plaintext have been deliberately placed by him to make the ciphertext harder to decrypt? We personally believe he definitely misspelled words to throw off the code breakers, since he seemed to enjoy taunting and teasing the public with his disturbing messages.
This concludes our presentation.
We hope you learned something new.
Thanks for watching.